Hi neighbors, and welcome to this special edition, a special telecast featuring what the MIAA and MSAA are all about. I'm one of your hosts, Pete Royce. I'll introduce the rest of our panelists here in just a moment, but we envision this to be the first of a series of programs to get at helping you understand what the MIAA is all about. It's going through some changes, and it hopes to have, in its road ahead, a lot of positives out in the future. Let me introduce one of my colleagues. Jay and I have worked together a long time. Jay Horrigan, who's a member of the board of directors of the Franklin TV group and also an official. Welcome to the show, Jay.
Pete, thank you very much. It's a thrill to be here. This is something we've talked about doing for quite a long time, and we've finally been able to pull it off working with some great partners at the MIAA.
And one of the partners is the executive director, Bob Baldwin. And Bob, you're the executive director of both the MIAA and MSAA. Yes. Welcome to the show. Describe what those initials all stand for.
They're a mouthful, so we've got to figure out, maybe we'll call them the association in the future. The Massachusetts Interscholastic Athletic Association, which is interscholastic athletics, but it's also the School Administrators Association, which is pre-K to 12 principals, assistant principals, and school administrators in the Commonwealth. So it's really pre-K to 12 sports and principals, and it's really a full, fun adventure. So they're two separate entities.
Yes.
And so one is literally the two separate boards of directors, two separate groups, and yet the building principals and the high school principals are the CEOs, so to speak, of the MIAA. So I think it's really good that we're doing this, because I think misinformation and not knowing, maybe we can create some awareness in the future so people understand, and maybe people won't care. I don't know, but the point is, at least we're putting forth the effort so people can get some understanding of why we do what we do in Franklin.
Yeah, absolutely.
And also joining us is the assistant director of the MIAA, MSAA, Jim Clark. And Jim, welcome to the show. I know you have a lot to do with communications and media relations. Must keep you very busy.
Yeah, it's a busy time of year. Obviously with a lot of tournament stuff, but just, there's a lot of stuff going on in both associations. And a big part of our partnership going forward is, like Bob alluded to, not only telling the story of the MIAA and MSA and what we're about as an association, but just highlighting and spotlighting the stories that are going on across the state with the student athletes and the coaches and the officials and everybody that's involved. And we're really thrilled to be here and really looking forward to the partnership with everyone here at Franklin TV.
Now, we use the phrase winning ways with the MIAA and MSAA. Bring that to life. What does that mean to you, Bob, winning ways?
I just think there are ways to win, and you initially might equate that to athletics, but it's not. We talk about winners in life, and isn't that whether we're in the education field or the interscholastic athletic field, aren't we trying to produce successful human beings when they're 30, 40, 50 years old? And while we get so caught up in what's going on at 16 and 17, and it's really about teaching what it's all about to be winners in life, and I think that's very appropriate. And whether it's pre-K to 12 in the education world or it's the interscholastic athletic world, it's all the same. The behaviors are the same, and the outcomes should be the same.
Yeah, that's great. And I thought all you guys do is go to meetings and take hits from fans. What do you all do? Jim, what's the day like in your job?
Well, it's kind of a mishmash. I mean, I think one of the things that really attracted me to the position in Franklin was, I had created the power ranking system that was used for the new statewide tournament that was launched last year. And I had done that when I was kind of doing some contract work. I came to the MIAA, MSAA after more than 30 years in the media world. I worked for a small paper in Fitchburg after I got out of UMass. I was there for 8 years. I worked at the Boston Herald for 21 years. And then, the pandemic hit, and I was at the Globe for pretty much the last 3 years. So I just kind of been doing some part-time work there. And they brought me aboard, and Bob, when he presented it to me, and I think, they did it with a lot of the people he hired, he just kind of pointed to the blank slate on the wall, and he just said, we're gonna bring good people in, and we're gonna find the rules for them. And it's kind of been a little bit of a process, kind of fitting the pieces together, but we're all excited about all the possibilities and what we can do going forward. So as far as what my day is, it's a mishmash. Sometimes it's crunching numbers, sometimes it's communicating with media folks and just helping to spread the message out. But it's stuff like that it keeps my day fresh and exciting, because it's not the same from one day to the next.
With the media interactions, you've really done, in my opinion, a great job with that, going back all the way back to you held a media day, and we had a full conference room with people from all over the state. What was kind of the motivation behind that?
I think that, I mean, as someone who was in the media world for as long as I was, and then kind of flipping sides, I think it was, just trying to change the perception of the MIAA. You know, we're not a combative, or we're not out to get people or anything like that. You know, obviously we had a message that we want to get across, but we also wanted to be, just kind of foster some better relationships with people, whether it was with the constituents, with the schools and the student athletes and people, or it was the media, or just the general public. We just wanted to, get a better perception out there about what we're all about, what we can do, and just really, spotlight the positive. Obviously there's going to be some bumps, as we go along, but we really thought there was a great opportunity to just kind of get our message out there, what we're all about, and just make it a better working relationship with everybody.
And Bob, you really focused that day, and since then, since we have all talked, on getting the message out there. We're trying to get people to learn exactly what the MIAA is and not these preconceived ideas. Give us a little bit of your background that kind of helped you to be able to be in this position now.
So I never knew when I was growing up that I'd be the superintendent of schools or the executive director of the MIAA and MSAA, but I wanted to, it was athletics. I had an upbringing around interscholastic athletics growing up, and pro athletics and college athletics. My father was a broadcaster, and yes, and WNBH in New Bedford, but he was also in Omaha, Nebraska, and did football games and hockey games there, and so I was always around athletes and locker rooms, and that was my life. And so I was fair to average to below average in baseball, but of course, in your yearbook you say you're going to play in the big leagues, and you find out real quick you're not. So I went to Springfield College, was a middle reliever that got sporadic innings, but made it there, did it there, and then once I realized I wasn't going in the bigs, what can I do to continue this? And to continue it, you still get involved in athletics, and I went to the University of Maryland to work there a little bit, and next thing you know, I'm a teacher coach. And I coached varsity basketball in Fairhaven. You're an official. I was a coach. You and I have a lot in common. We've never missed a call.
That's right.
I never missed a call.
Even if we don't agree.
No,
neither one of us.
As a coach, I never missed a call.
Yeah,
I never did.
Get that.
No, and I'm sure you haven't
totally,
either.
And that's why you're now in the position you're in.
Exactly.
You've never missed
one. No, I've missed many. But what it did, I didn't realize it wasn't really teaching and coaching. It was leadership. And then you matriculate up the world as an assistant principal, superintendent, and then when this job came open, it was really exciting. I'd been a superintendent for 16 years and said, this is a way to give back. I've learned 5 kids, they've been athletes, some have sat the bench, some have gone to college, coached 20 seasons throughout. How can you give back? And so I honestly am trying to give back, make us better, be more service-oriented, giving support, resources. So it's really, when you talk about winning ways, it's bringing in winners and then saying it's a blank slate, where can we go? And that's working with you as well. What can we do to make ourselves better moving forward?
Which is some of the things we talked about in preparation for this. Our goal is to do hopefully a couple of shows a month. We're going to highlight not just the MIAA and MSAA. We want to highlight students, student athletes, programs, coaches, administrators. What was the rationale behind that? What to make that an important part of what you wanted to do?
So as a superintendent principal in the education world, there were people that were for adults and there were people that were for kids. 100% of us need to be for kids first. And in this world, it needs to be about our programs, our kids, our members, and not us. We should be quiet. No one should see us after today's show. Hopefully the focus is on others and what they're doing, but truly it's about someone other than yourself. And that's, when we're talking about winning and leadership, that again is yet another adage that you're focusing on what others are doing, not what you're doing. And so it's no different than being in the school side with kids first, not adults. It's programs first, not Franklin by any means.
Jim, I have a question for you. When you look at, a student athlete, you have to be inspired by some of their stories. I'm sure you have great inspirational themes that have emerged from your work with kids over the years. Can you share a little bit about that?
Of course. I mean, when you're in, you go to college for journalism. You're an avid sports fan growing up, and my high school career didn't make it to the college level like Bob's did. But so I kind of needed to set a different path, and you get into the journalism world, and everyone always says, oh, you want to cover the Red Sox or the Patriots or the Bruins or whatever. But for some reason, I always just continued to gravitate back towards high school athletics.
That's great.
And part of that was, working for a small paper, near my hometown for 8 years. I got to really, develop relationships with coaches and athletes and fans and readers, and then moving on to Boston, and it was the big city and all that, but I just kept gravitating back to high school athletics. There's a purity to it. There's a joy, the thrill of seeing the game-winning shots, and of course there's always a flip side. There's always the tears of the defeat and all that, but there's just something so compelling and so pure about it. It's kind of hard to describe a little bit what keeps bringing me back, but like I said, it's just and the athletes cycle through, but you never forget the really good ones or the really great stories you told. I've been doing it for over 30 years, and now I'm kind of seeing it from a different lens, from the association level. But it's the same ideals.
So, Jim, you have approached, or you brought to the table, a lot of your media background. Bob, you have the administrative, you have the coaching background. Was that kind of the way you wanted to set things up with the different backgrounds, so you can all have it? It's a great relationship we see between you and the people that work at the building with you.
Some might call it a team.
Maybe.
So people asked me when I left coaching, do you miss coaching? And I said, no, because now I'm coaching adults. And whether it was a building principalship, whether it was a superintendency, you're still moving people toward a common direction. And when you do coach, and I've learned through the years, it's not about you. I've said this 1,000 times. You hire people better and smarter than you and get out of their way. And then when something bad happens, you take full responsibility for it. And it's worked. And so now we're doing the same kind of thing here. Is we're bringing in people. The first question we always ask them is, why are you here? It's not necessarily all about the resume. It's why, and then is it a match? And it needs to be a match just as much for them wanting us as us wanting them. So I don't want somebody working in a place because they say they have a job. They need to work for a purpose and meaning, and then it's our job to give them the purpose and meaning. And when Jim mentioned a blank slate, that blank slate is what can we create with all these people in the room together that may not be the way it always was, and that's okay.
Well, that's what I was going to kind of mention. Again, I go back to the media day, and there was so many people there that you had invited and were actually from out past Springfield, from the South Shore, North Shore, the Leominster-Fitchburg area. There were people from everywhere. It seems to be, from my perspective, I've seen you out. You've gone out and talked to officials boards. You've gone out and talked to parents. And Jim, I'm sure you're doing the same thing. It seems like that's a concerted effort to kind of bring a different view of the MIAA to people that are out there.
So when I've spoken, I've said that people absolutely say that the MIAA is responsible for scurvy, locusts, and killer hornets. If there's something wrong, let's just blame the MIAA. And I think building relationships, one relationship at a time, when they realize that they really have the best intent for all of us. We may have to make decisions, because when you make a decision that's adverse to one, you're upholding the integrity for all. That happened whether I was an assistant principal, a principal, or a superintendent. But people need to understand and respect why you do this, why you have these areas. So, we're going out there because why wouldn't we? What do we have? What do we have not to show under the hood? What do we have not to say? And and you also learn from people that way. How can you get better?
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, Jim, shifting gears a little bit, it's almost tournament time. That's got to give you an extra boost when you get to playoffs, doesn't it?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it was, the fall was an interesting kind of learning curve, putting new systems in place. We built that statewide tournament last year, but then I kind of came in and picked up on some of the data crunching and everything that we're doing. But it is, it's a little bit of an ego boost to be the guy that's got it all, it's all coming out of that laptop sitting on my desk. It's not pressure. I mean, it's this is something we all built and something that we kind of conceptualized in our heads, and we wanted to put it into good working order. But it is kind of fun to see it all kind of come together, as you get to those last couple of days of the season, and we're approaching the winter, cutoffs in a couple of weeks. Seeing the jockeying for position, and hearing from the people, we should be rated higher or lower, and it is what it is. But
Which the power rankings, I know you've tweaked it some. You'll probably tweak it again in the future. Talk a little bit about that, the mentality behind it, or I know ultimately you want to try to make it fair for every student athlete involved.
It's really challenging and really difficult when you have a state like Massachusetts, 370 some odd member schools, and all different, geographic areas, different, parochial versus public versus vocational, charter schools now, Central Mass, Western Mass, Eastern Mass, North, South, what have you. It's just such a diverse population of schools, and that's not even getting into the varieties of football versus soccer versus basketball, whatever. So it was a really challenging to try to come up with a system that kind of covered all of the bases without all kinds of variation. But I think it's kind of worked, and we're doing some data crunching to kind of see, we went in knowing that this was not going to be the final answer. That it was going to be kind of a trial by fire, and we're going to see how it worked. And I think the results and the data is kind of borne out that we're seeing the top seeds in various tournaments are getting through to the state semifinals.
Bob, we were talking before we started recording. People may not totally understand any changes you make to tournaments, anything like that. Who has the final say on that? That's not you, is it?
No. We are a membership-driven association, which means there are 19 sports committees, 11 standing committees, other committees that make decisions. Those committees are made up of athletic directors, principals, school superintendents, school committee members, and what they do is they vote on what the handbook says. They vote on rule changes. They vote. The TMC is not Bob Baldwin. Sherry Bryan is the liaison from the MIAA. So we have a liaison in each of these committees from the MIAA, but the votes, we don't get a vote. So it's like being that assistant principal again. It's I uphold the integrity of what is determined by the membership.
Right.
And so the membership chooses this and chooses that, and then it's our job to say, what does it say? Well, we need to administer it that way.
And ultimately, the people that oversee it, we were talking, are the principals of all the various schools throughout the state.
So I knew that as a superintendent.
Yes, right.
So I made sure that I never dealt with any athletic issues as a superintendent.
Right. Right.
I didn't want to pick the football coach. Some people may do that. That's fine. But the CEO of athletics is the building principal.
Right.
And really all issues end with the building principal. And that's where it goes.
With that note, we're going to pause. We'll just remind our audience we have here the Bob Baldwin, the head of the executive director of the MIAA, MSAA, and Jim Clark, the assistant director. I'm Pete Royce. He's Jay Horgan. You're watching this special on the MIAA, Winning Ways with the MIAA and the MSAA.
MIAA has a mission: growing courageous leaders. That is what our program Winning Ways is all about. From educators and coaches to team captains and great players, high school sports can bring out the best qualities in our future leaders. We also want to hear from you. Get in touch. Email us, winningways@miaa.net. Send us your questions and comments to discuss on upcoming episodes of Winning Ways with MIAA.
Welcome back to this, what we hope is the initial one program of many to come, featuring what the MIAA and MSAA are all about. I'm Pete Royce, he's Jay Horgan, this is Bob Baldwin. We'd like to welcome to the show now Steve Dubzinski, who is an assistant director with the MIAA, MSSA, and you also have to do with communications. Tell us a little bit about what you do at the MIAA, MSSA.
I figuring that out.
I came on as an executive assistant director for the MIAA and The building, I was a principal at Leominster High School, so I kind of morphed over to the MSAA side a little bit, did some work with urban schools, and some opportunities came up with the communications side of the building, and sat down with Dr. Baldwin, and we're maneuvering down that path right now as we speak.
Yeah.
That's
One
right.
of the things that I think you're all about, Steve, is growing courageous leaders. What does that phrase mean to you in terms of your role, in terms of the MIAA and MSAA?
Yeah, you know, growing courageous leaders is not just student-athlete oriented, it's adult-oriented,
Okay.
it's referee-oriented,
Okay.
it's us,
Okay.
starts with us right in our
Okay.
office, and so it's our catchphrase as to where we're going. It's a phrase that Dr. Baldwin brought in with him when he arrived, so I'm going to actually
Option
turn
pitch?
option
Yeah.
pitch to Dr. Baldwin, because he's got a great message.
Well, people look at us and say, you are the regulatory authority. You do a statewide tournament. Yes, that's what we do. Why do we do what we do? And why we do what we do should be to make an impact on the greater good for the long term. And that is, you learn so much in interscholastic athletics and student activities and drama programs and in school, and you learn it when you fail, when you struggle. And so you learn it that you give of to others and not self. So these are like core values and beliefs, really. And if we can teach through interscholastic athletics, you persevere with integrity when you fail. You don't make excuses, blame others, or complain. That's something that the world can do better at. When you succeed, you're humble and you simply say thank you and apportion credit to someone else. That's not what the world sees today. I always say to this, and Steve will make fun of me, but people need the button. And the button is, it's all about me.
Yeah.
It's not all about me. It's about others. And so if we can teach core values and beliefs through interscholastic athletics to coaches, athletic directors, myself, anyone else, and then that goes to kids, and then 15 to 20 years from now, we have a better world that we live in. It's kind of a real pipe dream, but why not? So growing courageous leaders is about all of us.
I noticed watching the NFL games this year in particular that the players have a little message on the back of their helmet: eradicate hate, inspire leadership, inspire change, love, not hate. Do you support notions like that with the MIAA?
Of course. And you know, there's so many things that go on within the office. You know, I just left the office before we came over here, and the student ambassadors were there statewide, and they have workshops, and they meet, 3, 4, 5 times a year. So there are student groups that meet over at our office. Those kids then take it back to their schools, back to their communities. And as Dr. Baldwin said, just take it one relationship at a time, one person at a time. This is a great opportunity for us. We are so thankful to have this platform to come in and speak with you guys, to be able to, just another way of getting our message out.
You have a lot of, and I don't think people realize how many of those leadership or different type of seminars you have. But it's also, what you do is you bring people, like you said, from all over the state, different backgrounds, where students can learn about other students, where they're coming from, everything like that. Talk about that a little bit, Bob.
Well, we talk about eradicating hate and bias through the platform of sports, and we read about the one, the story. There are 240,000 student athletes that are not the one. And there's so much good going on out there. And so I commend, by just having some of these things, our athletic directors and principals within their leagues are starting to have meetings, and these meetings are getting the leaders of the schools and the sports together, so that if they start building relationships before they play, then once they play, if something starts to go a little bit south, they all step in. And so the goal is just what we're trying to do: build relationships, talk about the right way to behave. There is a right way to behave, and that also know this is not tolerated or done here, and it's really educating the kids that way. But using the power of our young people. People always say, "Oh, the generation today is different." No, it's the expectations of the adults. If we set those expectations in the bar of the way we should be, then our kids will follow that. And I just believe that using our student athletes and our kids to model the way we should behave, middle school students are looking at that, elementary students are looking at that. Utilize athletics as that platform for what is all good in the way we act.
Well, you do get at all the different sporting events, and Pete will tell you the same thing. We get so many young kids there, whether they're elementary school, middle school, and all they're doing is looking up to that young lady who's out on the court, the guy that's out on the football field, the woman that's on the lacrosse field, and to teach them to represent, because they don't, I'm not sure they have a total idea of their impact on these young people.
So I was thinking about this. I have a little bit of a drive now coming into work, and I always say thoughts while driving. And unfortunately, I'll share.
We get a
Yeah.
list of things to do.
Right. I had some thoughts while driving today, so here we go. But take Jaylen Brown. Jaylen Brown against the Knicks misses 2 free throws.
Yeah.
His press conference is about, it's my mistake, I'll get better, I got to work at this. Comes out the next game in overtime and in the fourth quarter and nails free throws and scores I don't know how many points in the fourth quarter and overtime.
Total game.
And so that's persevering with integrity. He did not blame others, he did not complain, and he did not make excuses. We need to find that 10 to 15 minute clip, which I was going to send a note maybe to Brad Stevens to see if we could steal like all of the video footage of that. That is a lesson for kids.
Wow.
He missed 2 free throws, they lost the game. The press conference was, I messed up, I'll do better.
Yeah.
It wasn't, and so if he can do that, maybe we can teach our student athletes the same lessons, because that's how you persevere with integrity. That's a courageous leader.
Total.
It is. It's impressive to hear a professional athlete at the level he's at, to take, I don't want to say the blame, but that he messed up and cost his team the game. And I know that's a message you want to work with the students with, to let them know. How do you address that maybe with parents?
So earlier I told the story about I've always been coaching and my whole life, and I always say a caveat that the kids are much easier, right, than the adults. And adults as a coach, and that's where I grew my thick skin, not as a superintendent or principal, but as a coach, I grew my thick skin. Their parents love their children. Absolutely, that's the way it should be. But as someone involved with 15 kids or 30 kids or 47 student athletes on a team, you love them all.
Yeah.
And so what people need to understand is that 98% of our student athletes are not going on to the next level. And that while there are dreams, somebody needs to go into a Division III weight room and look at the size of the hockey team or the football team and then say, will my 5'6" child that I love actually do that someday? And we all want to have dreams, and dreams do happen. But the reality is, it's for the love of the game. It's for what sports teaches us. And instead of, again, making excuses, complaining, and blaming others, if something goes wrong, wouldn't it be great to teach our children that when something goes wrong, you wake up the next day and you face it, and life will move on? Isn't that really the life lesson? So we can educate everyone on that. And that's why I say growing courageous leaders starts with me. Starts with the adults to model that, and should permeate down to our kids and hopefully change the way we act in the next. It's not going to happen right away, because people are still acting out, but little by little by little, one relationship at a time. Why not?
Right.
Well, I think that's a good note to end the program on. Thanks a lot for joining us, Bob Baldwin, the Executive Director of the MIAA, MSAA. It's great to have you, and we look forward to your leadership in the months and years ahead.
This has been fantastic. Thank you so much for the opportunity, and hopefully to be continued.
It is I don't want to call it a new day, but it is a new day at the MIAA and MSAA. As Pete said, we hope to do a lot more programs, a lot of them with student athletes is the plan, and that's what these gentlemen want. They don't want themselves on the camera. They want the student athletes or the coaches. But thank you for that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you.
And we look forward, Steve, to having you with us, joining more about growing courageous leaders.
Thanks so much.
Okay. On behalf of my partner, Jay Horrigan, I'm Pete Royce. Thank you so much for this show on Winning Ways with the MIAA and MSAA. Till next time. So long, neighbors.
This program was made possible by your Franklin friends and neighbors. Good folks just like you. Thanks for supporting Franklin TV. And thanks for watching.